Welcome to Unpacking Brain Drama. It is the middle of your morning, maybe. We are at 10 a.m. I know it's a different time than normal. Though, one thing I want to point out is it doesn't matter what time it is, it's always a good time to get refreshed, get recharged. So I am Pratiti Pathak. I'm a resilience life coach, and I am your guide on this self-discovery, self-empowerment, living with intention journey that we are all on together. And I'm so grateful that you guys are on here with me. Um, Today, I'm going to be talking about something that I think that we can all relate to, which hopefully all of our topics are just like that. Do you ever have that moment where it just feels like it's too much? Like whatever you're doing, the moment right before, like you have that breakthrough right before you rise. So that is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to dive into that space that most people try to avoid. Yes, we're talking about that moment, the moment that it feels like too much, when everything inside of you just wants to shut down, right? It's the moment that your mind is like spinning and your body is overwhelmed. You're literally just questioning everything. Why am I doing this? Where am I? What is happening, right? That moment right there. So that is what I want to talk about today, because what if I told you that is not the moment, actually. That is actually not the moment where we break down. That is actually the moment that is the beginning of your breakthrough. That's right. You heard me. It is the moment that we start to break through, because it's usually that time where we just feel like we can't take it anymore. That There you go. That's what happens when I try to do all these things at the same time. But that is the moment that is actually the beginning of a breakthrough. It is not when we're getting ready to break down. Um, if you guys have ever heard of a book called Puke and Rally, written by Dr. Rob Bell, that is a book that I am doing right now in my book club. I love reading, and I just learn more and more. I am on this growth journey with you guys. So it makes sense to me for me to continue to grow and evolve right alongside of you. And I love the raw awareness around that. It's just such a rawness around that phrase, puke and rally, right? Because it's so real, right? It's that moment where your system is so overwhelmed, where your brain is like, I can't do this, right? You may be in the middle of a competition. You may be in the middle of like working so hard at building a business. And it's that moment where your brain is kind of spinning, freaking out, and thinking, I can't do this. This is too much. I'm not ready. What if I fail? I mean, how many of us have been there? Let's just be honest, right? Here's the truth. Your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, right? Your brain's job is not to help you grow. We all know this. Your brain's job is just to keep you safe. And growth does feel unsafe for your brain, right? Expansion does not feel familiar. It feels unfamiliar, right? And anything unfamiliar to your brain is just a red flag, right? It just gets flagged as danger, danger, abort, abort mission. So when you start to feel overwhelmed, when you feel like you're about to puke emotionally, mentally, energetically, that is not your sign or your signal to stop, right? This is your sign that you are at the edge of your current identity, right? You're like, this is as far as I go before I'm not the person who I have been 5 minutes ago, right? That is the moment that you break into the next version of yourself. It totally makes you want to feel dizzy, like you want to pass out, like you want to get sick, right? Just as the phrase implies, right? You're not breaking. There's nothing about you that's breaking, right? There's nothing about you that's becoming broken. You're expanding, right? So let's reframe this just a little bit. because most people in that moment think something has gone wrong. And usually what we're thinking is something has gone wrong with me, right? But what if the truth was nothing's gone wrong? Something is growing inside of me. Usually we just think something is wrong with me, but really something's growing in me, right? So let me say that again, because this is pretty much everything. Something you are not breaking down. You are expanding beyond the current version of yourself, right? And when you're expanding beyond what your current self knows how to hold, it feels like pressure, right? That's the gap between who you've been and who you're becoming. That's such a huge gap, right? That people talk about, like you're born and then you leave the world at some point. What did you do during your dash? That's the becoming over and over and over. You're not the 5-year-old version of yourself anymore. You're not the 10-year-old version of yourself. You continue to become the next version, right? And here's where most people go into autopilot because they retreat, right? They detract, they distract themselves, right? They start buffering, they start spinning, right? They start staggering, right? They start getting stagnant. They go back to what's familiar because that's what feels safe. Familiar doesn't necessarily mean that it's aligned, right? It just means it's familiar. And familiar doesn't equal growth, right? Comfort doesn't equal growth. As a matter of fact, discomfort is the currency for growth, by the way, my friends. Familiar just means it's been practiced over and over and over, right? That just means your autopilot is kicking in, right? This is where your autopilot shows up, your autopilot patterns show up. And if you're not aware of it, if you're not able to notice it, this is where that autopilot can just steal your life away, right? This is what I call the steal cycle: situation, thought, emotion, action, life experience. That's the formula. But the thought is unintentional. That's where it steals, because the thought is unintentional and the action is more of a reaction. It's a reactive behavior. It's a reactive pattern. And in these too much moments, your unintentional thoughts probably sound a little bit like, I don't think I can handle this. This is what always happens to me. I'm not good enough. I don't know how to do this. I'm not going to get it right. What if I mess everything up? Right? And from those thoughts, you can't create expansion, right? You create feelings like overwhelm. From those types of thoughts, you create feelings like overwhelm, fear, anxiety, stress, right? Sick, right? And from those feelings, you're either going to freeze, avoid, right? Flight. You're not going to go into fight. You're going to go into flight, or you're going to freeze. You're going to avoid it. You're going to withdraw. You're going to procrastinate. You're going to quit. You're going to spiral and spin out of control, right? And then what is your result going to be? You stay the same. Nothing here has changed. Nothing is, instead, you might even go backwards because you'll probably start beating yourself up about it, go into a little bit of victimhood and bring on some shame and blame for yourself, right? You don't grow because, not because you don't want to, but you can't. It's because you can't grow from those types of thoughts and emotions, right? Because your brain chooses familiar over intentional. That is why we have to be hyper aware when these things happen. This is your PowerPoint, okay? Here's the shift. That moment, this moment when it feels like it's too much, right? The one that feels like it's more than you can handle. That is your point. That is your power point. That's the power moment, right? This is where you get to move from autopilot towards intentional design, right? We're drafting something new. It's a draft. It may not be perfect the first time, but this is when you shift from that steel formula into the steer, right? Where you get to be behind the wheel, right? So instead of, I can't do this, what if you asked, what if I actually can? And I'm just not used to this yet, right? Instead of, this is too much, what if you said, this is just stretching me a little bit into my next level, a little bit we're into a zone where I'm just not comfortable. I mean, I've been in a lot of rooms lately where people have said to me, this is definitely taking me out of my comfort zone. I don't love it, right? But at least they're being honest about it and they're aware, they're feeling it. They're feeling it in their body because their brain is thinking it. They're thinking like, I'm overwhelmed. So there's no other emotion to feel other than overwhelmed if your brain is telling you that you're overwhelmed, right? I'm learning how, what if you went from that to, I'm learning how to hold more than I'm used to. Do you feel that shift? Just a little bit, same situation, different thought, different experience, right? Learning to stay in that moment is the biggest thing. Like that's where clarity comes in. So I want to be really clear about something. Okay. This is not about forcing yourself. This is not about bullying your way to the finish line, right? This is about pushing through in a way that is compassionate, but it disconnects you from yourself, right? When you try to push your way through, that disconnects you from yourself. We want to do it in a way that's compassionate, right? This is about staying with yourself, holding yourself, loving yourself through the discomfort, right? Because that's where resilience lives, right? It's not built when things are easy. Resilience is built when you stay the course, right? Stay the goal. When you take a deep breath, when you get some awareness and you observe and you notice, and then you choose on purpose, right? That's where resilience lives. Even if it's, and it should be, just one small shift at a time, just one little baby bite, right? And just one little baby step at a time, and it will continue to just move forward. Everything doesn't have to be big leaps and bounds, right? Even if it's just, I don't have to have all of this figured out right this moment, but I'm not quitting on myself, right? That right there, that is resilience, right? You don't have to have all the answers. You're just not going to quit, and you're just going to take one more step forward, just one more step forward. That's it, right? There is a power in just one more. Ed Milet wrote a book on it, right? Your next level requires a new version of you, right? But here's the truth. Nobody wants to hear that. Right? Here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. You cannot create a new life from an old identity. Okay, I'll repeat that. You cannot create a new life with an old identity. So I can't be have the identity of a 5-year-old and act and be like a 10-year-old. Doesn't work that way, right? Your next level, right? Your next grade, 4th grade to 5th grade, going from elementary to moving up to middle school and then moving up to the high school, your next level absolutely will require a new way of thinking, a new emotional capacity, right? If you got picked on as a little kid in elementary school, you can't go in with that same emotional capacity into the high school, right? Those big kids will eat you up, right? A new relationship with discomfort. That's what we're creating, a new relationship. That's really all that changes is your relationship with your ability to be out of your zone, to feel a little discomfort. And those puke moments, those are your training grounds, right? That's where you show up, right? They are showing you where you're being stretched, right? When you have to get up on stage and you feel a little sick to your stomach, That's how you know your goal is actually big enough sometimes, right? When you say, I'm going to get up on stage, well, there's different stages, right? I'm on a stage and on a platform right now for the whole entire world to see. Though I don't see anybody out there in the audience. So maybe it doesn't feel as scary. What if I now was on a stage where I could see all of the audience? Does that feel scarier? Does it make me feel a little more sick? Does it make me want to puke? Maybe. Is that a reason to do it or a reason to not do it? Right? When you feel that way, those are the moments that are showing you where you're being stretched, right? Where you're being invited to grow, right? It also is showing you where your current identity no longer lives, right? Your current identity does not fit in right here, right? To get up on stage and be in front of 1,000 people. It was different when you were on stage in front of a group in your office and you were just talking to your colleagues and maybe a few new people, but nothing crazy, right? Maybe a room of 20 people, 30 people. Maybe you're only used to being in front of 7 people. So if you're in that type of season right now where things feel heavy, and it doesn't have to be being on stage, it could be growing a new business. Maybe you've been working for somebody as an employee for many, many years, and now you've decided to go start your own business. Maybe you didn't even decide it. Maybe you were let go from your position. Maybe your company had to make some cutbacks and you were part of that cutback. And now, looking for a job or getting a job or being employed again, doesn't seem like it's going to sustain, right? Maybe you won't make the same money again. Maybe this is where you have to shift, right? Some of us just have major hinge moments where we have to learn how to do something different. And maybe it's way bigger than anything we actually imagined. For most of you, I lost my son 2 Fridays ago. It was 17 years ago. And he was 17 at the time. And that was my hinge moment. And that was my biggest hinge moment. But I had many other hinge moments all along the way, right? So if you are in that type of a season in your life right now where you're having a pretty heavy hinge moment, okay, maybe it just feels a lot heavier than it really is. Maybe it just feels like it's a moment where things might feel uncertain, right? The not knowing is the fear, right? That's the biggest thing. That's what gets us into fear, is the not knowing, right? Where you feel like you're being pushed to the edge. I want you to hear this, okay? Nothing's gone wrong. Number one, you're not broken. You're not behind. You're not failing, right? You are in the middle of becoming. And that is uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable. It can feel very much like a ton of pressure, like the weight of the world is on you. That moment where it feels like it's just too much, it's not the breakdown. That's the doorway. That is not the end. That is the doorway, right? That is the threshold that you just need to walk through and break on through to the other side, right? So this week, what I would love to invite you to do is step into something simple but powerful. Okay, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. The next time you feel a little bit of overwhelm rising, okay, pause, take a deep breath, but pause and ask yourself a couple questions. What if this moment is preparing me for something bigger, something greater, something more expansive, right? What if I don't need to run from this? Instead, I learn how to just sit with it and stay with it. Because your life, your results, Your transformation, none of that is created in the easy moments, the moments that are simple to do. I got this. I'm there. I did it. It was awesome. First time win. That's not where any of that is created, right? It's created in the ones where you chose to stay when you felt like running away. Right? And I'm only speaking from my own experience. I can't tell you how many times I have wanted to run, just hightail out of that situation, just get out of here before anybody even sees that you even thought of being here, right? But that is the moment that I chose to stay and work it out with myself. I chose to love myself through it. I chose to forgive myself through it, to have some compassion for myself through it. And that is where the beginning of the next versions of me showed up. And I love this version of me right now. And I can't wait to let this version of me go and go on to the next version, because I certainly can't someday be 100 years old from the 56-year-old version of myself. It will not work. So as always, Trailblazers, thank you so much for being here with me, and thank you for doing this work. You are absolutely living proof that so many of us want what we came here to get, and that is growth, learning, lessons, just figuring out and learning what the heck we're made of and how far we can, what's possible for us. So, and as always, I want you to live your life with intention. Create your results by design, not by default. And I will see you in the next episode next week. I'm going to have to tell you guys, I'm not sure what the times are going to be. They've been moved around a lot because I've had a lot going on and been having so much conflicts with my schedule. So as soon as I figure that out, I will post it. If not, I'll just keep showing up at the same time. It'll be either 10 or 11 a.m. I will let you guys know that, and then that's what it'll be. So have a beautiful rest of your week and a beautiful rest of your weekend.